Hello, everyone, and welcome to day number 5, our daily debrief, our 5th daily debrief, our 6th night in a row going live. My name is Robbie McHugh.
Hi, I'm Lisa Girizzi, and welcome to the final daily debrief of the EMS Leadership Summit for 2025. And thank you for joining us. This has been an amazing summit, the most tickets we've ever had anyone, purchased or actually participate in, I shouldn't say. It's the most free passes we've ever had. It's so exciting from people from all over the world. We just realize how hungry people are for the kind of leadership training that this summit offers.
Absolutely. And we've got a panel of speakers from today's sessions. And we earlier today premiered Dr. Nadine Levick's keynote talk. We live streamed that one out, and Nadine was our 40th speaker featured at this year's summit. We set out with a goal of 25 and ended up consistently increasing that with panels and additional sessions and interest. And Nadine gave a fantastic talk today about in her keynote about innovations in safety and how we as leaders can really start to embrace breaking down those silos. So excited to have her live with us. We premiered a session with Duncan McConnell, who is standing by, been doing the medical as a medical resource and paramedic with a very large race in Australia. So he has taken a break from that. We've got Corey Key, a retired battalion chief or deputy chief, I forget. I'm sorry, Corey, from Fairfax County Fire and Rescue Department. So he is in the green room, and John Kavanaugh talking about continuous improvement in. So we are excited. We've got our virtual exhibitor hall live and lots of resources from all of our sponsors, from Image Trend, Revenue EMS, Ninth Brain, Phase, patient handling, and safety experts, talking about safety equipment for reducing provider injuries and how we can innovate with different transfer devices. And so please do check out our exhibitors. We've got a fantastic booth here from different associations, as well as Resuscitation Academy, Citizen CPR Foundation, and an incredible 6 Minutes to Live documentary style video that is a must watch. We had a press release go out this week talking about what leaders can do to create more momentum, improve survival in their communities. And we've got a lot of resources here that you can check out, emsleadershipsummit.com/exhibit. And then, of course, to view any of today's sessions, you can click over to booth number 1 to watch those sessions. And if you haven't already gotten your all access pass, we're offering NEMSMA approved CME credits if you're looking to pursue a professional credential. So we thank our friends over at NEMSMA as well.
And again, I say it every night, but we just ask that you go and check out each one of these booths. As you can see, as Robbie clicks on them, they're interactive. There's information in every single booth that you can take or download and gives you great information. I know in the Phase booth, there's a free 30-day trial with the Binder lift. Many of the other booths have some just important information, and it's the same as if you were in an in-person event going through the the vendor hall. And if it wasn't for our sponsors, we would not be able to do this on such a large scale, for sure, and to offer it for free. So we kindly ask that you make the effort to go and check out our sponsors. And Yeah, and Fire Rescue TV is broadcasting us live, simulcasting us right now in about 500 or so departments across the country. So thank you for watching.
Yeah, our partners at EMS One, with a following of about 300,000. Our partners over at High Performance EMS, 80,000. Fire Rescue TV, approximately 120,000. So we've got a combined reach of about 500,000 possible viewers out there. So we're excited to take your questions. So please comment where you're watching from. We'd love to see that in the chat. And if you have any questions, we're taking them here live.
Awesome. All right, so we should mention the playbook also. If you want, you can go to booth number 1 and download it there, the PDF of it, or you can just go to EMS Leadership Summit .com/playbook. And not only does it have a description of all the sessions, but it also has a lot of great information, articles from our speakers, several of them, and information from all of our sponsors. So it's a wonderful opportunity to learn more about the summit and what sessions are available.
Well, Lisa, with that, why don't we go ahead and bring our panel together, and why don't we bring in our speakers and we'll introduce them. So first of all, Corey Key. Corey, welcome. Thanks for joining us. We have Duncan McConnell joining us. He might be on mute occasionally with all the race car engines in the background. Duncan, thanks for joining us from Australia.
No worries at all.
We've got John Kavanaugh. John, thanks for joining in.
Absolutely, glad to be here.
And last but not least, Dr. Nadine Levick joining from Israel, from definitely an innovation center, and talking about innovations in safety. Nadine, welcome.
Hi there.
So we certainly have quite a range of time zones going on with our live panel here. Duncan from all the way in the future the next day as well. So, really appreciate you all being here live. Maybe if we could go just around, give people a little preview or a taste of the session that you put together and what people should look forward to. So maybe if we could start with Corey, you want to talk a little bit about your topic and what people can look forward to.
Certainly. So a lot of my topic involves how to recruit, how to keep people, things like that, and just the mindset of today's applicant and today's paramedic, EMT, firefighter, any of those, what they think, and kind of some strategies for you and leadership to get them to apply and then also keep them, which I think is a huge thing.
Yeah. Corey, you ran a very large recruit academy, right? You were in charge of training towards the end of your time with Fairfax County and took kind of a leadership role in training.
Yes. And so we kept, and it's obviously not as big as some departments, but we kept approximately 80 recruits in at one time. And that is just our recruit staff. We also had, our regular field training that we did. So we had those students come in. We had paramedic programs going and our continuing education for EMS, which I ran all of those also. And then we had separate volunteer agencies that participated. So just a wide variety of a lot of different things.
Great. And why don't we go next to Duncan? Duncan, do you want to talk a little bit about your topic and career advancement and pathways and how you're engaging with paramedics?
Sure. Look, I sort of span mine as a bit of some tree diagrams for those of you who've watched the presentation, and sort of starting off as a bit of a sapling and then sort of growing up into a mature tree and where your career can actually take you. I'm in my 28th year, and some of the things that I've sort of done over the years, there's no way if you'd asked me when I first started if I would have ever ventured into any of those. But it's sort of designed to sort of identify that sometimes your organization isn't going to give you all the answers. And you may feel like you're a little bit lost. So what are the opportunities that you might be able to take yourself to do a bit of self-development, professional directional training so that you can either achieve what you want to achieve within the organization you're working for, or maybe looking for opportunities elsewhere and giving you the qualifications plus the experience that you already have to sort of succeed in that direction.
Fantastic. So as we talk about Corey bringing new recruits in, you're talking about what are the career pathways and opportunities for people, whether it's internally or looking forward to creating that. And John, maybe you can mention a little bit about your talk and your returning speaker talking about continuous improvement and what can leaders do to make those incremental changes. Yep. John, can you hear us? I think John is having a little bit of...
Yeah, it looks like he's frozen.
All right. No worries. We'll bring John back in. Next up, why don't we, Nadine, talk a little bit about the conversation we had today. Now that you may be in a leadership position in your organization, what are the trends in the industry and how do you keep up with them all?
I think we're at a really interesting time right now. We have a whole bunch of information, guidelines, data, science that we never had 20 years ago. So we're now in a position where our big challenges are, how do we apply what we know? How do we apply all this important information to make our operational systems safer, better, and more cost efficient to run? We talked also about some examples from transferring information from military settings into EMS. And I'm sitting here in Israel in the middle of still a war, our longest one. And we presented some very interesting data that has been accrued in emergency trauma management that is a bit of an oxymoron. No airway management in the field, transport the patient, give them whole blood. Here in Israel, it's a very unusual situation that the blood bank is actually run by the major national EMS organization, Magen David Adom. So the ability to do that is possible here. The other interesting issue that was discussed here in our presentation today was the use of digital transfer of patient information. Like most places, it used to be that everything was done on paper in the field with critically injured patients, and they decided that they were going to make an app and be able to transfer that Bluetooth from tablet to tablet so that all the acute patient data was digitized and was immediately transferable. That's really been a huge asset in managing critical trauma patients, particularly when we've had periods of sudden surges of numbers of acutely injured patients in the active war zone areas. So it's pretty interesting looking at what we can learn and some of the training initiatives that are underway here, particularly in the military training, the MS providers. One of the big changes that they made during this war period was to move the ALS providers right into the front line to facilitate rapid stabilization of critically injured patients. That's been extremely effective in improving outcomes. The case fatality ratio dramatically dropped during this war, even though the injury severity scores were 3 times over 15, were 3 times what they were. So that's been very interesting to see how those initiatives have been identified with rapid data capture and then solutions being distributed. So we don't see a 30-year window from when we see challenges with our lights and sirens policies till they're actually applied with new policies. Things were happening quickly over weeks and months.
Yeah.
And we did talk about new policies, and we now have 2022, 2024, new policies in the United States for lights and sirens and for system evaluation, really expertly written, led by Douglas Cooper. So kudos to all the folks who've been involved in making that happen. That will save lives, time and money. So we talked a little about that, and we also discussed some of the all hazards approach in understanding how best to manage systems issues pertaining to safety. So that's sort of in a nutshell what we did.
I love that you just broke down about 300 slides into a nutshell. It's great, but it was a fantastic presentation. You're masterful in delivering that, and certainly we're going to come back to the systems-based approach that we've been talking about as a bit of a through line all week. I'd like to bring in our final panelist, Laura Kloosterman. Laura, welcome from Badge of Life Canada. Thanks for joining us here tonight.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
So I love that we've got multiple countries on board with multiple perspectives. And Laura, you bring a 35-year career in law enforcement, and now in your position with Badge of Life Canada is supporting peers across multiple different industries of first responders and helping, it sounds like, helping leaders see that there may be a better systems approach to supporting the mental health and you termed it sanctuary trauma versus PTSD that occurs.
Well, and I think what's happening is, so PTSD is the umbrella, and that's kind of like what, people are diagnosed with. The sanctuary trauma and the moral injury is what's coming because of the toxic leadership. Yeah. So lots of times there's like psychologists and psychotherapists, they're able to treat the PTSD with the traumatic event. What they're having a problem with is the sanctuary trauma and moral injury, because the organization they have caused the sanctuary trauma, which is literally betraying them. They don't feel that their organization is a safe place. So the sanctuary trauma and the moral injury it's the inside, like it's how you've been made to feel. And I think that's a big piece, because it's a very internal piece. If you've had a traumatic event, if you've had, organizations or leadership come and go, you know what, we all do tough things, that adds to the trauma. And so that's the hardest piece to get over, right? Because then once you get through the traumatic event and go back into that organization, what is the guarantee that you're not going to be dealt the same hand? That the leader, that your managers are not going to say the exact same thing and just cause it all over again.
Yeah. It's very interesting to come full circle with this panel from, again, recruiting and onboarding people to creating career paths to leaders embracing safety solutions that are all these systems, and what we're exposing people to are, we've got the result of how the system was set up. And Laura, you're talking about now, how can we be more proactive and support people that have gone through these traumatic issues? And as leaders, how do we make sure we don't cause more damage than the actual event?
I think it's being trauma informed. 100% trauma informed. I think that once we feel comfortable, once we get leaders to feel comfortable in being able to have those difficult conversations of what do you need, or maybe you don't even know what you need right now, so I'm just going to hold space and I'm just going to be quiet instead of making the comments. And I think that's the biggest piece, is the trauma informed approach. So Badge of Life Canada, we don't share to identify, we share to identify, we do not share to compare. Because that's the difficult piece, right? Is we want to go like, we know how it feels. Well, that demoralizes the other person. And so having that trauma informed lens and being comfortable having those conversations, that's going to make the big difference in the recruitment and retainment. I mean, you talked about it. Every public safety personnel is having a recruitment and retainment problem. And I think that leaders need to really take a step back and ask the simple question of why.
Yeah. That's been a theme. That's been a theme throughout the week. As we've had these nightly debriefs where we keep going back to, which is why we put the summit together in the first place in 2019, was to really reach out and start to say, everything else we do, we upgrade, right? Like Nadine, you were talking about all these, safety things, and, we don't use the same monitors we used 10 years ago. We certainly don't use the same techniques we did even 30, 40 years ago. But has our leadership been upgraded, right? Are we, and that was one of the things, Corey, in your presentation, I really appreciated, was you were about breaking down those traditional ways of thinking, and thinking that the way we recruited 40 years ago, 20 years ago, are going to be effective now. Why would we think that when, like I said already, like the approaches we've taken on so many other things have really been upgraded, if you will, or up leveled. And so I just love how all of this comes together. And then the other thing that's been a theme that I've heard throughout this summit and watching all the presentations is the power of a systems approach, right? When we're not identifying the individual as the problem, but really looking from a higher view, if you will, or a 10,000, 20,000 foot view, and seeing what's the system, what's this underlying system that's producing this result. And sometimes that system is our leadership, right? What's the way of leading? What's our system for leadership? And what's the result that that's producing? So it's really awesome to just be having these conversations. And one of the questions we got, because we've been collecting questions all week, and we'll start with you, Laura, and then we can certainly go around if other people have uh, ideas on how to answer it, is how do you get the leadership to care about addressing the mental health needs of their employees and not just brushing it off?
I would literally ask the question, which I have on several occasions, what's the cost of doing nothing? And I think that we're in it right now, right? This is the cost of doing nothing. And I think it's sad that we have to put a dollar value on things. However, let's put a dollar value on it. Let's put a dollar value of when we train someone, we bring someone on, we pay them, we train them to have them go off. And then to have someone to have come in and have to, backfill in that. And then you burn them out, and then you have to continually go over and over and over. And that's the cost. And if it's just simply saying that we're going to take a trauma-informed lens, and you were so right, it's a systemic thing. It can't just be like one, one station, or it has to be systemic from the top down and the bottom up. They have to meet, and leaders have to be informed as to this is what your actions are causing, and this is the cost. This is the cost to your employees, not just one or two. This is the cost. This is burnout. This is the sanctuary trauma. This is the moral injury. This is the systemic problem of retainment and recruitment, because people don't want to join an organization where they can see that they're not going to be cared for, that their leaders are not going to care about their needs. And that's, if you want to put a dollar value, then I think leaders, you put a dollar value and say, and then make it very public. And I think that that's the biggest thing is to keep conversations like this going, because then leaders are going to have to step up and say, you know what, let's make a change. Let's start this.
And that is the work that, at least in the United States, the American Ambulance Association, their Newton 360 annual turnover report identified. And they actually have seen turnover rates as high as 38% in some organizations. And they've quantified the direct cost of turnover at around 22,000 US, which is almost double what their prior figures were. And they attribute that to them just being people reporting that data, being more aware and tracking the actual direct costs. And not to mention what you're pointing to, the indirect costs, the burnout of constantly training people to the entry level, let alone clinical excellence and creating a career path.
Yes.
Ori, would you like to comment on that? I know you've supervised a lot of people, and you're someone who does care a great deal about the well-being of your employees. What would you say to this question?
I would say from my experience, the more I cared, the more buy-in I got from my people, the more dedication, the more they actually wanted to do more, and it got them more involved, which gave them more purpose, and then reduced their stress levels, negative stress levels, and then reduce burnout rates. They were also able to shift focus, if that makes sense, away from a lot of the stuff that was irritating them, and focus more on whatever it was that they were passionate about. And I would just reinforce that as much as possible, try and figure out what that is first, and then reinforce and provide a solid background for them. And again, just showing them I'm cared. Something as simple as remembering their birthday and doing something, I don't know, silly, or, anything as far as that goes. And a lot of times, even for little recognition things, people would say that, oh, this is dumb, why are we doing this? But really, they really enjoy it and they really appreciate it. And I've had a lot of people say that, that even though they were resistant to it at first, after it kind of happened, they were very kind of, proud and happy to have it. So
Yeah, recognition, acknowledgement can go such a long way for people. People will
Well, and I
always
think
do more than what's expected if they feel acknowledged and appreciated.
And I think that first thing you said was just caring, and that's another certainly a theme we've been hearing from the leaders and the experts we've had on throughout this 5 6 days was, are you coming from a place of caring, not from a place of you're just trying to get somebody to do something, right? And having an understanding of where that person is at. And Corey, that's another thing I loved about your presentation where you were talking about creating those recruitment strategies for who the person is that you're trying to recruit, not just their qualities, but the frame of mind that they're in, or the way that they see the world.
Yeah, 100%. We definitely did that, and my people know. I hate it when people say that perspective is reality. I prefer viewpoint, because perspective is kind of it's a person's opinion on how they see the situation, and it's not really the truth or facts. So something that I try and instill to my people is always, always, always look for facts first. No matter what it is, you are on a fact-finding mission before you start drawing conclusions and things like that. And I think that also really helped them. It helped mentor these individuals to show them, hey, this is how you can show that you actually care about these people, because you're not just drawing random opinions about the person or about the situation. You're actually looking at the situation, gathering facts, listening to what they have to say, and then making decisions based off of that.
That's great. Duncan, did you want to chime in here? You also, with all your experience, I'm sure you can speak to this as well.
Yeah, I can. Thanks, Lisa. Look, I think one of the most potent ones I've had in the past is when the employees have come up to me and directly asked and said, look, is HR working for us, or are they working for the organization? Because we've put forward our concerns. You're helping us as much as you possibly can, and they see you're working as well and making things sort of happen within the team. But then sort of when it goes up to that next level, they feel that it's sort of lip service only and no real action actually taking place. And when you see 4 senior executives depart an organization in sort of a 12-week, 14-week period because they're just burnt out and fed up with not getting the support they need to support their staff underneath, you have to take a step back and wonder, actually, where is the problem really located? And I know personally I've been criticised in my yearly reviews in being too caring and too employee focused and less focused on the needs of the organisation, to which normally shocks me a little bit. And I respond back with, well, we don't have our employees. We're not going to have an organisation. So yeah, it is an interesting animal to deal with, and there's no perfect answer other than the fact that, look, if you can learn from it and work with the employees that are sort of seeing the same thing you're seeing, hopefully when they get up to that sort of next level, maybe you could help to start weed it out and remove it from happening again as best you possibly can. And it's not that hard to do. So it really does boggle my mind in some of the places I've worked at, when it just seems to be easier to bury your head in the sand and actually tackle the problem straight on.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've talked about this all week, but the one interview I did with Steve Chandler and Trevor Timbeck about the power of systems, and one of the things they talked about is that the sort of current model of leadership really creates this experience where sometimes leaders feel like they have to be like amateur psychologists or amateur therapists or something, and that's the problem because that's not their job. And so and then they don't feel comfortable with it, so they avoid it, and it becomes like this, the struggle and the suffering, as opposed to when you see it from a systems approach, and you see it as it's you and me against the problem, as opposed to you're the problem, right? just sort of, again, taking that step back. And it actually allows people to be more human. A lot of times when people hear about systems, they think you're being very rigid or impersonal, but there's actually more of a connection, like you were saying, Duncan, when you care about someone, but you're not trying to fix them, right? You're just trying to help the person see, you know, how they can grow, or how can we work this problem out together, right? As opposed to jumping to some kind of discipline or fixing or whatever. And I think that's such a powerful opportunity for leaders to really step back and let go of that misunderstanding.
And Lisa, I think it
I think
leads
it's
into
a just culture approach.
Yeah. Go ahead, Duncan.
Yeah, the just culture approach. And I think I think having that sort of just culture approach sort of helps build that. And having buy-in, showing that the leaders are leading it from the top down. And I think I mentioned that in one of my other presentations I've done with you in the past, in the round peg and a square hole presentation. It was either last leadership conference. And it is that. And I think if you can sort of lead from the top down, that sort of helps with that. But sometimes it does feel like you are banging your head against a brick wall. And then you feel disappointed that you haven't been able to actually achieve the health and well-being that you want for those people that are genuinely suffering.
Yeah.
As we go into this next question, which is very much related, I think it's how do I help people see leadership, and I'm adding in safety, safety
Any training really,
as an opportunity and not as a criticism. So I think, Nadine, I'd love to hear your input on this as somebody who's, speaks the language of safety and has seen many different systems.
It's a very interesting area when really everyone benefits from being in a safer situation, but it really is a cultural challenge. It's you've just got to look at some of what we saw with people like Bill Leonard in 1991 saying, hey, we can do this differently and everyone will benefit. And then it took 30 years for everyone to see, hey, this is a better way to do things. Sometimes just, leading by example is a great way to go. And I made a couple of comments from some leaders I really respect, Al Brunicini and Justin, and they both made very similar comments that it's in the hands of the leaders to lead by example, to lead in a way that if the message isn't getting through, if they're finding that there's resistance, that they need to change how they deliver that message. And as was highlighted by one of our colleagues already here from the example from the police, and it's not the same for every person, and sometimes you need to have a different approach for different people. Not everyone is sensitive to the same issues, and it's really important that, as was touched on, that people that your workforce understand that you care, that you're doing this to make their experience a more positive experience, that they're going to be helped and they're going to be safe. One of the comments I made was that somebody had said, the safety data in EMS is that a provider is only going to survive in the job as long as his back does. Now, that we've got to really sit back and look at what is it we can do to communicate effectively in a way that's acceptable. I gave an example of trying to communicate risk, and it's not easy. There's many different ways that risk can be communicated, and I think the most important thing is to make it so that the people who are involved in a risk situation understand that you want to help minimize that risk for them, and you want to help them, and that you care.
Yeah.
And I think that that's You know, there's all sorts of management, there's all sorts of styles. But when you look at places where people have worked there for years and years, and one of the leaders that comes to mind is a guy called Larry Wersch from Citronia Ambulance. I haven't spoken to him for a little while, but you know, he's a dedicated leader who really cared about his staff, and he had loyal, very loyal employees because he was able to communicate to them he cares and he wants to make sure they have the best work experience. So, challenging question. You know, safety is often seen as a stick, not a carrot. But I can tell you from looking around at the systems where safety has been a strong focus, say, for example, CareFlight in Texas, where there's been a really strong focus on safety and how important it is for all the providers at all levels to understand, hey, we're doing this to make sure you have a better experience and that there's a better outcome for everyone. So I think that communication of risk is really very, very important, and how that's done and how that's tailored so that all the different types of people who respond to different types of approaches are embraced properly in that.
And Nadine, I think that's how you almost concluded the presentation and the keynote from earlier today, is you talked about a cross-discipline approach in an effort to break down these silos. But when everyone has the same joint sense of purpose at the table, then you begin to focus on what you want more of, as opposed to trying to make it occur as a criticism. So that cross-discipline approach and joint sense of purpose is, for me, what I took away from your talk earlier today.
Yeah, that's pretty much where it's at. Yeah.
Laura, I was wondering your take on this question, because I'm sure, we could substitute any kind of training, and I know you offer a lot of good, really solid training. How do you help people see this as a opportunity, not as a criticism?
I think because you touch on the growth piece, and it can't just be like the high end leaders, is that in order to grow your organization, you want to show and train leaders from the very beginning, because even recruits, like second year, third year, like, you're training them to be leaders, and that's the growth piece. For the leaders that are already, like, high level leaders, then you say to them, you're going to grow, and we're giving them more tools. And I think we've touched on the fact that we care and we want the best for our organization. When we say this is what we're doing, we're showing that we care. We're giving you the tools to have the difficult conversations, to be able to feel comfortable talking to your people. That's the growth. And then you're going to see your people grow and your organization grow, and that's going to be sustainable as well.
Yeah. It's interesting because I was just reminded of early on when I started my coaching practice, or doing leadership training. I would go into organizations and be talking about eliminating stress or creating better communication and more effectiveness, and they thought I was taken away like a badge of honor, like how stressed they were was part of their personality. You know what I mean? Like no, that's how people know I'm important, because I have so much, so much on my plate that I'm running around like and it took a while for people to start to see, like, oh no, that was optional, right? Like, all that makes people want is to stay away from you, because they don't want to add anything to your, because you're so stressed, and it took something to really have people slow down enough to see that the way of being that they had was actually not producing the result they wanted. So I think that what you're saying is having that in the fabric of the organization, so everyone's getting trained in leadership, everyone's getting trained in safety, like and Corey, you probably have something to say about this as the training czar, I would but like, just that's just part of what we do, right? Would you agree, Corey?
Yeah, absolutely. some of the stuff that Laura had hit on too, like starting from the very beginning, is so incredibly important, and it helps change that culture overall. But if you look at, and I think I referenced some of this, in the Marine Corps, that's how they do it. And that's why they produce such good leaders, is because from the moment you get there, they're training you to be a leader and to be the next level. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. So, shall we go around and get wrap up and final thoughts as we, sort of get to the end of our time together today? Duncan, maybe you'd like to go first. And any one of the other questions we have, I'll throw out there, and you can answer this one, or just any final thoughts is, we got a question yesterday. What's the best advice you have for new leaders? And we really haven't had a chance to address that, but if you want to do that in your final thoughts, or anything you want to share as we wrap up our daily debrief today.
Yeah, good timing too, because all the radical V8 race cars just went past my window. So it's quiet for 2 minutes. Look, I think treating your employees in the way you want to be treated is probably the easiest option, and it's easier said than done. Seeking out for those alternate professional development pathways that may not be options within your own organisation. There's heaps of online courses. I'm sure there's some various universities or sort of TAFE institutes, depending where we are in the world, because everyone's slightly different in that space. But I mean, even something as simple as the summit and your leadership development programs you run as well. Like, there's so much opportunities now for leaders to expand and ask. And I think getting that mentor and looking for that mentor to guide you through those processes, because it'll help you wade your way through those murky waters to strive for success instead of going round and round in circles and drowning in stress, so to speak. And just touching on a couple of other areas, in that I think from a systems perspective, probably the thing I've seen most overlooked is the importance of education. Education, or an education department within most of the EMS organisations, tends to be the poor cousin, or that uncle you'd rather forget, and it's forgotten. Yet we spend thousands of dollars and hundreds of hours in training people to get to those critical care levels, but we don't give that same enthusiasm and approach to developing our current and future leaders. So that's one thing I'd love to see in system changes, is the importance of putting education at that same level as what you put forward for your operational capacities as well.
I love that
Thank
idea.
you, Duncan.
We love the concept of, let's build a bench of future leaders so we're not constantly struggling for the next promotion. And then when we promote that person, they do a bunch of damage because we haven't prepared them. I mean, it seems to be such a logical solution to the whole.
And I think quotas, like meeting quotas, because we don't have enough of this type or enough of that type within the organisation, and just putting people in positions because they tick a quota amount. I'm not for that either, because if you put people in a position just because you want to have the right numbers of this and the right numbers of that, if they aren't the appropriate person for the position, then you're setting them up to fail, and the organisation is going around in circles and failing too. So my perspective on quotas is, okay, if we don't have that many of X or that many of Y, then why don't we work out why? Let's be curious. Let's find out why they're not sort of being more successful, and let's train them up, and let's make them the best candidate. Let's give them the opportunities they need to succeed, because that's what we really should be doing, because then we're setting them up for success.
Great. Fantastic. Well, Duncan, thanks again for joining us here tonight. Thanks
No
for your
worries at all.
thoughts. We'll let you get back to it, and appreciate you being here.
No worries.
Stay safe, Duncan. Have fun.
Will do. See ya.
Who would like to go next?
I'll just say a couple of words. I think Duncan touched on something that I feel very strongly about, and that was mentorship. There are many different styles of leadership, but there are opportunities to be mentored by leaders who you feel have really been successful. And I've touched on a few people here and there who I've seen have fabulous leadership roles in their organizations. I mentioned Careflight and Jim Schwartz, and and Larry Wershett, Satronia, and there are many, many people around the country that across the world who have really demonstrated excellence in leadership style and engaging and benefiting from a strong mentorship relationship with someone who can be a guide to you, who can understand your strengths and your weaknesses and help you get to the leadership excellence that you can achieve. I think is really, really important. Education, yes, very important. And I look back at the folks that I've watched grow into strong leadership positions, and sometimes their mentor is not even in their own organization, but they have identified a mentor who will help, or mentors who will help carry them forwards in their career to be the best leader that they can.
Yes, great. Thank
Well,
you.
Nadine, thanks again for joining us. I know it's very early in the morning for you, and
Yes, it is. It's nearly 2 o'clock.
yeah.
Oh, thank you.
We hope you stay safe where you are and continue to innovate in
Yes.
safety. We so appreciate your perspective and coming back every year and giving your thoughts and your perspective on safety innovation around the globe.
It's a real honor to be part of your work, and I just want to say how amazed I am watching how this has developed into such an important initiative. And it's a real honor and privilege to be part of that. So thank you very much for the opportunity to share the information.
All right. Well, with that, Nadine, we'll
Our
let you go.
privilege.
Thanks
Bye
for
then.
being.
Yeah, I'm going to bed. I'll see you later. Bye.
Thank you.
So fantastic.
I
Corey,
know.
do you mind going next? I would love to hear your advice, your best advice for new leaders, and kind of final thoughts as we wrap up this EMS Leadership Summit here on day 5.
So my best advice would be just do stuff. Believe it or not. No. My best advice is don't always expect what you think the answer is going to be. Don't have that preconceived judgment, because what you might find is that the answer is not at all what you expected, but it is what you needed. And so really delve in, look for that information, and ask the people that you're trying to, get to. It's the age old know your audience. So if you don't understand kids today, then go talk to the kids today and ask them, what do you want? What do you need? And see how you can mesh that together and make it all work.
Absolutely, Corey. That's what we so appreciated about you and watching you kind of grow as a leader into different positions, and having that just natural curiosity and being willing to try it out, being willing to not assume what people's answers are going to be and just ask them and engage with them and just doing it, because you did a lot of stuff while you were there.
You sure did. It's always amazing to me when people say, I don't know what to do. I don't know what they want. And I'm like, they're not aliens. They're human beings. It's not that. It's really not that hard to figure out. Ask a question. Oh, I love that. I love your answers so much. Thank you, Corey.
Corey, thanks for being a returning speaker. Thanks for coming back and sharing your wisdom, and we appreciate you, folks. There's still time. Make sure you check out today's session. So, Corey, we will talk to you soon.
All right. Thank you all.
Bye, Corey.
All right, Laura, last but not least.
2 words, vulnerability and just to be authentic. I think that leaders need to be authentic. Vulnerability is going to build trust, and that's okay. And I think Corey touched on it too, and Lisa, you too. If you don't know, just ask. Yeah. Just ask. And that's, I think that's the biggest thing, and build the trust, build that foundation of trust. We're all human. We all make mistakes. The vulnerability is going to be the one that you say, you know what, I made a mistake and I'm going to learn from it, instead of like, I'm the leader, I know better. And that's it. My takeaway from this is amazing job. This was just an absolute pleasure and an honor to be a part of this. My first year, and I'm thrilled. I'm just thrilled. So I thank you so much.
Oh, we're thrilled.
You're very welcome. Thank you. And our good friend Wendy Lund, who couldn't be with us this year, she recommended you, and also, oh, her name is escaping me.
Carmen.
We just talked.
Carmen, yes.
Carmen. Yeah.
Carmen, thank you. I could only,
The
all
three
I
of
could
us
think of
are
was
just-
horses.
The
So,
three of us are doing great things, and I'm just, I'm so
yes,
excited. I'm just so
yes.
excited.
So we owe Wendy a big thank you for introducing us to you and to Carmen. So
I'm
thank
so
you.
honored. I'm so honored.
Laura, can you give a little plug to where people can find more about Badge of Life Canada and the work you do? Because you host also a weekly workshop of
Yes.
peer support.
Yes. So we have so everything is on our website. It's bolc.ca. And we have peer support every Monday night for public safety personnel and Wednesday night for family members of public safety personnel. And our
Wow.
peer support is unique in the fact that we always have a mental health professional in the room at all times. So it's and it's people from all across Canada, and it is absolutely, it's connection and community at absolute finest. So I'm honored to be a part of it.
Well, I certainly hope more people adopt the model that you've put together here and learn from it to spread that information around the globe. We've certainly had a global panel and global audience. So we thank you for sharing your experience and helping others. So with that, Laura, thanks again for being here and joining us.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you, Laura. It's great to meet you.
Nice meeting you.
Oh, we've got such a fantastic panel. We've got such an even more incredible lineup from day 5 from John Kavanagh, who had some internet issues and could not join us. But John was talking about systems improvement, learning from other industries, and how do we adapt that continuous change model into EMS. And John's a returning speaker, but just talks so well about systems improvement as well.
Yes, and I'm sorry that he wasn't able to join us. But yeah, it's so cool to be able to look at other industries. I know way back in 2019, we had the CEO of a bank, and people were like, what's he got to say about EMS? And he didn't. But what he had to say was about leadership. And he had some really great innovative ideas of how he transformed his organization, and it helped a lot of people. And Robbie, you and I got together because you said, let me look outside the industry for who can help, so there's a lot to learn. Yeah, there's a lot to learn from other industries that we can adopt and adapt. And I think that's so important. So the other speakers we had today, Julianne Stevenson, who wanted to join us but could not due to internet issues. But her talk today was also about making decisions around your career. Very, what's the word I want? She's so dynamic. I love watching her speak. And hers is called Do I Stay or Do I Go? Reclaiming Clarity and Control.
Yeah.
And it's a very fun but impactful presentation.
Especially if you're in charge of education and a program director, she has such an interesting perspective from that world of not only frontline providers, but training our frontline providers and helping sustain these program directors. So, and last but not least, Molly McCampino returns for a second year from Northwell Health Center for Emergency Medicine, and talking about her research and focus on women in EMS and how do we support them, and some of her latest research, her team's latest research on the both pregnancy and postpartum experience of EMS clinicians. So we have an entire booth dedicated to EMS research over in the Northwell Health booth, and other papers for supporting women in EMS. So Molly's done a fantastic job putting that presentation together. So Lisa, yeah. I think with that wraps up our speakers for the day.
Well, I personally just want to thank each and every one of our speakers, our panelists, just going above and beyond, providing these presentations and doing it in such a way that they're accessible for people, whether you're in, a rural area, municipal area, anywhere, you can, just gain so much. And where in the, doesn't even have to be US, right? I mean, we have speakers from all over, we have participants from all over, because there's so many
issues.
Universal issues, exactly. You took the words right out of my mouth. So, it has been an extraordinary week, and I want to thank you. This was an idea you had way back in 2018 and enrolled me into the possibility. And I was like, all right, sure. And how many people in 2019 when we were launching it were like, what? I don't even think did we get 20 speakers first year? I don't remember, but we had 1,500 people on day one who said yes to participating. I think that was a 3-day summit back then, and we knew we were onto something. And here we are in 2025 with 40 speakers and over, 30, 35 sessions, and just and the feedback the participants have been sending to us.
Been
This is the
great to
most
get
I
so much
remember ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
So
universally thanking us and thanking our speakers. And if you haven't gotten your free pass, I highly recommend that you do that today, and there's still time to get your all access pass before the price goes up.
Yeah.
It's a small upgrade to be able to have lifetime access to all of the sessions, as well as the 2 lunch and learns,
Yes.
and all the daily debriefs, which each of these daily debriefs have been sessions, right? They've been people talking about these top issues. And so, I don't know. It just seems to be a no-brainer to me.
Yeah. And I think back, Lisa, to the vision we created for, we want to be the source of transformational change across the industry. We set out to do that almost, I think, over a decade ago. And ultimately we had that clear vision of where we wanted to go. And this has been in alignment with that. Folks, check out the virtual exhibitor hall booth, and you can see some of the upcoming training that we are hosting coming up in June. So we have a live 2-day leadership training. And unlike what we've done for the summit, where sessions are pre-recorded and premiered, we will actually be live with people in our studio that Lisa is in right now. And we've got a wall of television screens so we can bring everybody in for a front row seat and engage with other people. I remember the one training we did had people from Alaska, Belize, US, and somebody in the Middle East, and up until I think 4 a.m. And they were the most engaged. So it was really great to see the engagement and people realizing that their issues are not that unique, that they can that they're not so alone in having these issues, which means there's universal solutions to these issues. And I think that's what our speakers have done so masterfully, is they've just shared the solutions that are out there, that people don't have to reinvent the wheel here. You can reference Nadine's presentation, and there are so many standards for safety and standards for training and innovations that are happening. It's just, we need our leaders to just actually slow down a little bit and think about the future that they're creating, and sending people to a training that we've put together. May seem like you're creating some holes in your schedule, but it'll be a huge, I think, gift to someone that allows them to slow down and reinvent themselves as a leader, and invest some time into your people.
And I would highly recommend sending a few people. I'm not saying that, as a salesy thing, but we've had organizations that have sent 5 people from their, team, leadership team. We've had people who have sent them, overtime, like two per training. And the thing is that people have so much support when they go back to their organization, because they have someone who went through the training with them, and they can, really together create even more change and more positivity. So it's affordable. There's no travel. There's no, hotel rooms and getting kids, your kids coverage and all that kind of stuff. It's really as convenient as can be. And it's 2 days of an immersive leadership training, with a 3rd day, which is a bonus day. If you want to add it on for an additional fee, it's all about strategy and building the system so that it works.
Yeah, fantastic. So, folks, as we conclude here and we wrap up, I want to thank all of our speakers, all of our great sponsors. We couldn't have done this without them. So please do check out the virtual exhibitor hall booths. Each booth has something unique that can support your agency and your community. And with that, I think it wraps up for me. It's just such a a great feeling to be here with you, Lisa, and to be with all these great speakers that we've had. I so appreciate everyone's time and everybody watching. I really believe this is helping leaders, change the future of their organizations.
Yeah, and I can honestly say I've been doing coaching and performance coaching and leadership coaching for 30 plus years at this point, and I got something out of all the presentations I watched, as well as the ones I participated in. I mean, there's so much gold. No matter how long you've been a leader, there is something to learn because leadership is a journey, a mountain with no top, right? It's like you can always improve, you can always learn something, and um, it's just been a beautiful experience. I get moved every time we do this because we're surrounded by such amazing human beings, and the generosity of the sponsors, the generosity of the speakers. It's just so cool.
Yeah. So with that, folks, this wraps up the 5th daily debrief. There's still time to watch sessions. Head on over to our virtual exhibitor hall to check that out. And we wish you all well, and we will see you the next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.